City Builder fans, let me introduce you to the roguelike crowd, because all of you now have a common interest. Indie darling Against the Storm is leaving early access and entering the world as a fully fledged and finished title. It's a game all about building robust outposts and enduring a world of misery, hardship, and never-ending rain. As a British man, this obviously appeals to me, so I gave it a go to see if this game will be able to stand firmly in the contested crowd of town builder games. Against the Storm does things quite a bit differently to others in the genre, but there are a lot of familiarities to be found for veteran builders. The game is primarily about population control and setting up production chains. Your citizens will want certain things and you'll need to accommodate them by building this and that to satisfy those needs. It's got an exploration angle, as you carve out your surrounding forest to house your people, and a basic economy system. Traders will visit from time to time, and you can send off caravans laden with excess materials to earn you a bit of amber. There's several different biomes, and these all have their own individual looks and feels, and they all bring new challenges. Resources may be more abundant in a certain region or lacking altogether in another. There are specific events and unique mechanics per area, which means they all have their own feeling. It's not just the same forest but the trees are now red. But it gets its uniqueness from all the things it does differently. The most obvious being it's labelled as a roguelite. Whether it fills that criteria or it's more accurate to say the game has roguelike elements is open for debate. I'm sure folks will discuss that passionately but respectfully in the comments section. But the point is, it's got a whole boatload of RNG, meta progression, and you are expected to lose. At the beginning anyway. Any other town management game will have you unlock more and more buildings as you play, and you'll go from humble beginnings into a powerhouse with endless options at your disposal. But that's not how this works. You'll unlock buildings as you play, but you are limited. You will only have a small portion of your build pool available to you on each run, so you'll have to strategize, prioritize, and adapt to tough situations. Initially, the game world is pretty tiny. To get more lands, you'll have to carve into the forest around you. Here and there you'll see pockets of prime real estate, but every time you hack your way into one, the game will get harder. What it boils down to is a game that's all about risk versus reward. You're only a few bad decisions away from turning a bustling frontier into an absolute disaster. Sometimes you just don't win. Your people will get fed up and leave or just mysteriously vanish. So you take the loss, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, and try again. Every run starts the same. You're in the middle of a forest with a few villagers and basic supplies. You'll pick some starter quests, or orders as they're known in the game, and you'll pick a few buildings to get you started. From these first decisions, you are already nailing down your strategy. Do you go for something that's going to be crucial during your late game, or play it safe and pick something you can use straight away? You'll also pick your first cornerstone. Now, these really shake things up. Some of them are just flat increases, but some of them are a little more unorthodox. They might give you resources when a villager dies, leading you to be a bit more cavalier in your leadership style. Others might just change the way the game's basic systems work, or unlock new victory conditions. So you're set up and you're ready to expand. Send your woodcutters in and make the forest yours. But be careful. The trees don't take kindly to being felled. As your merry band of lumberers swing and chop, the forest will increase its hostility to you. As you discover new glades and unlock new areas, the forest gets mad. This is the game's way of keeping you in check. The more hostility you generate, the lower the mood of your townspeople. If they get too upset at you, they will just leave. This is not great because A, you need villagers to do things, and B, your boss, the queen, will find out. And you don't want the queen to find out if you messed up, because that's how you lose the game. The hostility also has another effect. The game cycles through seasons. Every third season is the storm. The storm is bad. Your workers' resolve will be pushed to the limits and the forest will unleash a slew of new modifiers. It might mean your food supplies diminish faster or your people travel slower. It'll make corrupted legions emerge from your buildings or force you to make a hefty payment or suffer the consequences. And sometimes, it may just flat out kill some of your people. As I said, storm? Bad. The game is always fighting back against you, so this means it's not the carefree town building game it may seem at first glance. But you do have the means to get all these problems under wraps. So, first problem, your villagers are miserable. No worries, we can sort that out. Much like you and I, your town's inhabitants like the smaller things in life. A roof over their head, some fancy food, maybe even a tipple of wine here and there. We can provide that with our production chains. Gather raw meat from the world and create a farm. Turn your harvest into flour and combine all those things to make a big delicious pie. Providing complex food helps stave off the increasing miseries of the world around you and allows you to push further into the game. As you provide more options and services here and there, they might actually start to like living in the forest. And a happy population helps tick away your reputation meter and get you closer to victory. But there's a few things that make life harder. For one, your town is inhabited by a few different races and they all want different things. Your humans might love a mug of beer after work, but your lizards prefer a good brawl instead. Beavers love nothing more than a jar of pickles, but harpies? Ugh, they hate the stuff. They'd rather have a nice biscuit instead. Foxes aren't that bothered by religion or education, but give them a nice cup of tea and they'll be a happy bunch. So you have to provide a spread for your people, which is also made harder by the fact that, again, you don't have access to every building. So you have to think, where do I need to focus? Do I make the easier item that'll provide a small bonus to a third of my population, or work towards something more difficult that'll make them all happy? I said before, the game is all about risk versus reward, but it's also about adapting. Sometimes you get dealt a rubbish hand, and you just have to learn how to roll with it. The game is chaotic, and you'll be flying by the seat of your pants at times, but as you go, you'll unlock more options and learn to deal with everything the game throws at you. Most of the time, things reach a point where you start to feel comfortable. You've finished all your orders, your people are happy, the evil angry forest is your oyster, victory is in sight. But you'll need a little push to get over the finish line, and the game gives you options on how to do this. But most of the time, you'll need to crack into the deepest recesses of the woods to do an event. You can tell which ones are scary because of the great big glowing red skulls, and yeah, they might ruin your game, but they might give you that little boost to close things out. There's a wide range of events in these, and some you're prepared for, others you aren't. Back to the game's main cornerstone, you just got to adapt. Take enough risks and keep the balancing act going for long enough, and you will win. This is the part that might be jarring for fans of the genre. You don't just keep building endlessly till you get bored. There is a finish point. When you reach it, you're whisked back to the world map and told to just give it another try. But with a new world, new buildings, new cornerstones and new events, the resources will be different, the forest will find new ways to fight back, and the same strategy that won you the last round probably isn't going to work here. I mentioned the basic loop before, and that's it. You're constantly building more settlements and expanding ever further into the storm around you. But there's a couple of other layers. The first are these, ancient seals. Expand far enough and you'll reach one and attempt to get it under control. Doing so takes you to a new map with unique modifiers. The early and mid game will be pretty consistent with before, but this time you can't win by filling the blue bar. You'll have to close out the scenario by finishing a series of tasks which will push you and your people to their limits. If you prevail, great, you've made the world a safer place. You increase the length of cycles, allowing you to expand further in your next playthrough, and potentially reach another seal. And then that whole loop continues until all the seals have been reforged. The other loop is the prestige system. The game feels tough when you start, but the more you play, the easier things get. At a point, things will feel like clockwork. And that's when you make life more difficult for yourself with prestige. There are 20 levels, and each adds in a new modifier. This isn't just a flat increase to difficulty, it feels a bit more interesting, and subtly changes the way you play. Villagers might eat more food, or your goods are worth less to traders. Each provides a little challenge to keep you on your toes, but when you start adding them up, well then the game really opens up as a complex and pretty damn difficult experience. And that's what kept drawing me back in. Well, one of the things. First and foremost, it's just a really enjoyable town building game. Mechanically, it's great. It's accessible, but also there's a ton of depth. The changes between runs, the meta progression, the roguelike elements, they all work together to make each town interesting, and it's nearly impossible to resist jumping back in and building another. And all the while, you're getting better as a player. You understand more, you master challenges, you recognize patterns and strategies. You start to grab the forest by the acorns, and your progress is as clear as day. Well, clear as a very rainy day. Now, I've got a confession. Usually these types of videos, I will dive into a game for maybe 1 or 2 dozen hours and just get a really good handle on how it plays. I've played this one quite a lot more though. Having sunk well over 100 hours into this, I still don't feel like I can give a comprehensive review of everything, because there's just so much. I'm always discovering new things or cool little interactions, and all the while refining how I play. This may seem quite restrictive on the outside, but there's enough going on under the hood to keep up with the heavy hitters in the genre. It's up there with the very best. Its combination of gameplay features and alterations from the tried and tested formula make it unique, and everything just works in tandem. It's also just a treat to play. Graphically, it's charming, and the sound design is excellent. But again, I'm British. I could listen to the sound of rain literally all day. It's atmospheric and welcoming, whilst also just being a bit unhinged and chaotic. Against the Storm is the path less travelled, but it's a truly excellent game that provides so much once it gets its hooks in you.